I'm still battling a small cold, so if my voice sounds a little bit weird, I apologize. Today I'm gonna do a top 5 Wednesday, and the theme this week is top 5 teachers or mentors, and they have requested that you don't do Harry Potter characters, which is kind of difficult, but I will take up the challenge. So let's get into it. The first character I'm going to talk about is the teacher from the Mistborn series. And I will show you a picture of the books. Wrong. This is the Steelheart series by Brandon Sanderson, and it's with the professor. I loved him in books 1 and 2. I thought that he had such like an interesting dynamic, and I loved the way he really was a leader, but he also appreciated everyone's contribution to the group, and I thought that his dynamics with David was really, really interesting, and I just love that character. For me, I think his character lost its fascination in book 3, but there's a very, very big reason for that, and when you read the series, it will make a lot more sense. I don't want to give no spoilers here. But I really liked him, and I loved him in book 1 and 2, and I was slightly disappointed in book 3 because I think that David and Professor's relationship was one of the highlights of that series for me, and I felt like a little bit disappointed in book 3 because of that. But I really love book 1 and 2, and I loved Professor in those books, and I thought that his like various roles that he had in the series were like super interesting. So that's why I really liked him in that book series, and I really need to read more by Brandon Sanderson in the future. The reason I said Mistborn was because I have those as audiobooks and I haven't listened to them yet, but they are on my list. So yeah, that's just some of the reasons I like the professor in the Steelheart series, and yeah, I really enjoyed him as a character, and he was one of the teachers or mentors that just come to mind when you say mentors. So that's my thoughts. Series I'm going to talk about is the Pushing the Limit series, and I'm going to talk about all the teachers in the series, specifically the one that, or the therapist and the teacher that closely relates to Noah and Echo's relationship. I cannot remember her name for the life of me. And the teacher that encourages Ryan and Dare You To. I thought that those two teachers had such a fascinating relationship with their in those books, and I thought that their role, especially Noah and Echo, because like you get to see her repeatedly, like you get to see her with Isaiah and you get to see her with Noah. I thought I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but I really liked her and how she really like pushed all those characters. There was a bunch of adults in those books that I just felt were like really like strong characters. Sometimes you get like characters like adult characters in those books that just like don't care, but I felt like she specifically, all the characters that dealt with Noah and Echo, those two, I think it was two females, they really did everything they could to make sure that those kids got the help that they needed. And also the teacher that encouraged Ryan and Dare You To. I love that dynamic because I thought that her, really, she was so encouraging to Ryan, and when no one else encouraged him. And I felt like that was so important. You always have to have a teacher that encourages you, and I think that Katie McGarry really works on doing that. And I recently read the tie-up novellas for her Pushing the Limits and Thunder Road series, and there was another teacher that we met in that series that again was like so well crafted. So all like the females in those series, like all the teachers and role models of that, I really really liked. And also in the Thunder Road series, there was a lot of mentors. Like I love Cyrus as the head of the motorcycle gang. I thought his relationship with the boys was really really interesting. And also in the Oz book when the grandmother passed away, but her role in that book with, especially with all the kids, because that's like an underlying relationship between all of those books. She this is not a really big spoiler, but she winds up dying in one of the books, but it has an undercurrent for Chevy, for Razor, and for Violet, and for Noah, and you get to see the impact of her relationship. So that's another but the entire Pushing the Limits and Thunder Road series had very, very strong mentors and teachers, and I just wanted to give her a shout out. What I'm gonna chat about is our character is Chiron from the Percy Jackson series. How he really focused on these characters, and I thought that his relationship with Annabeth and Percy was really interesting because I think he really encouraged Annabeth, and I think that was really important that someone not only encouraged Percy but someone also encouraged Annabeth. And I think his relationship with all of the kids, like you see various relationships, but I think the strongest was probably definitely between Annabeth, Percy, and Grover. And you see that definitely in the first book series, but you do see him definitely in the second book series. You see him less in the third series that we're in now, which is the Trials of Apollo. But I just love how he really has a connection to all of the characters, but especially Percy and Annabeth, and I really like that. I think that he definitely acts as a more of a mentor and a teacher because he really basically shows Percy how to be a hero, and I think that that is sometimes a role you don't always see because Percy really needed to be taught because even though he has all these powers, he needed to channel them, and I thought that it was really interesting that Chiron could help anyone channel their powers for the greater good, even if he isn't like a sea god or something, which it's really interesting because in all of these characters in the series, the parents really have no role in their life well, most of the time, and I think that Chiron was really good at like not only encouraging Percy, but also encouraging all of his students and making them find the greater good. And I thought that was super interesting. And I really loved how his character has progressed throughout the series, and I'd love to see more of him, hopefully, in the later series down the line. But overall, I really like Chiron, and I had to give him a shout out. It's a teensy bit of a cheat, but there are tie-in novels, and I literally just finished my Buffy rewatch. So I bet you can guess who I'm going to talk about, and that is Giles. Between Buffy season 1 and Buffy season 5, I think Giles has some of my favorite moments, and I love the dynamics he has with all of the kids. I think he really kind of adopts them all. I think he definitely adopts Buffy in many, many senses, and he definitely adopts Willow and Xander in some instances, and I just love their dynamics. And I think that when I think of the Scooby Gang, which I know some people hate that term, but when I think of the Scooby Gang, I think of the Scooby Gang as Buffy, Xander, Willow, and Giles. That's my Scooby Gang because I think that they're so interconnected, and I think especially in the first seasons, season 5 of this TV show, I think you see so much of that, and I think it's so fascinating their dynamics, and I think he really does train Buffy. And I think season 6 and season 7 with Anthony Stewart have wanting to spend more time with his family and having less instances. But there are still some moments in those seasons that I love. Like, I love when he comes back and tries to save Willow, and ultimately that role goes to Xander. But I love, like, his relationship that he has with all those characters. And I think, I think if Anthony Stewart was more, like, had less scheduling conflicts, I think the end of Giles would have been really different. I still want to read the comics. I know stuff gets wicked weird in them, but I'm really excited. But I definitely do like the dynamics that we see between Giles, Willow, Xander, and Buffy, and I really enjoy them. And I was really happy with my rewatch, and I think I definitely noticed him definitely stronger in the first couple of seasons. But that makes sense because Buffy's like 15, and then once Buffy turns, older and has Dawn, she kind of has to become the mentor or the leader, and Giles has to go away. So I do understand that. I just wish that Giles had a more clear ending and more was like a more consistent storyline rather than here today, not here yesterday. But overall, I really like Giles. And if you have not watched Buffy, you need to do that. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm going to chat about is the Air series by Cinda William Chima, and I'm going to talk about Nicholas Snowbeard. 3 books in the series. I do own them all. But I do recall I really liked Nicholas Nick in the first 3 books that I've read. I thought that he was a very, very competent mentor, and I think he really develops unique relationships with all the kids or the children in these books, and I liked how he really acted as a mentor to both Jack and Steph, but in very different ways. And I think that he also is very much like a world builder. He kind of builds the world up for the Air series, and I think he definitely is the token mentor in it because he just gives a lot of information and he acts as like very much a trainer as well. Linder a little bit, especially in book 1 with Steph with Jack a lot, but definitely I think Nick acts as a very, very competent mentor, and I really liked his dynamics with all the characters, especially Jack and Steph. I don't recall his relationship with Jason, but that will be my next read, so hopefully I will get to report back on that when I do my non-spoiler review of that book series and spoiler chat about it as well. But overall, I really like Nick, and I really am so far really enjoying my reread of the Air series and excited to see what his role is in the last 2 books in that series. So that's all my thoughts about the mentors and, teachers that I really like in YA/middle grade literature. This list included no Harry Potter, so we won't mention those characters, but I bet you could know who I'm missing. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you guys next week for another topic.